So we've spent a significant amount of time talking about the impacts of the individual from a biological, psychological, social, and spiritual perspective. Now we're going to move on from just the person with addiction, and we're also going to discuss what is occurring with the family system at the same time. Unknowingly and counterintuitively, there may be times where the system, in order to keep equilibrium, may actually be enhancing or supporting an addiction. And so it's very important that we are able to educate families so they know that what their behaviors are consistent with those of recovery and are there to help the person recover. And it's not always an intuitive decision. And families as well need counseling, need help, and need resources in their own recovery, such as the addict needs help in their recovery. As the person who has the disease of addiction has consequences that are biological, psychological, social, and spiritual, the family system suffers these same consequences as well. There are biological symptoms for the family, there are social consequences for the family, there are spiritual consequences for the family, and there are psychological consequences for the family. As the person with addiction attempts to control their use, oftentimes the family system attempts to control the person with the substance abuse issues. So as we can see, aside from just the substance and the individual with the addiction, that it also affects the whole family system, and then the family system attempts to maintain equilibrium, attempts to maintain the family through different interventions and behaviors. Oftentimes, those interventions and behaviors may be actually enhancing or supporting the disease of addiction without knowing. What can typically occur is as the person with addiction is reactive to the substance, the family system becomes reactive to the person with addiction. So again, we're talking about the midbrain, the limbic system, reactionary behaviors, trying to maintain equilibrium. And what we want to be able to do here at Farley is to be able to assist people in understanding that there is help out there, and there are also some proactive ways to take care of yourself, take care of your family, and help the person who has a substance abuse issue. Oftentimes in families, you may have heard this before in other interactions or other educations related to family programs, there can be, for the individual and the family system, roles that each take on in order to maintain that equilibrium. For example, much of the focus may become about the person who has the addiction in the family and may lead to different compensatory roles by the family system. For example, there can be the person with the addiction, obviously. There can also be somebody who becomes a caretaker in the family who is wanting to help that person constantly. There can also be the hero. Family systems, when they are stressed, often start to look towards another aspect of the family system that provides some sort of relief. This may be somebody like what's called the scapegoat or the mascot, and there's also the lost child. I encourage you all, and we will also provide you with some resources so you can begin to look at what are some of these historic family roles that tend to occur in addicted family systems, so that you may understand both from an educational perspective and also perhaps if any of these have occurred in your own family. Oftentimes, the addict is a focal point of the family. This individual is a source of the family's conflict as they deal with his or her behavior and choices. A lot of the family's energy is going towards helping the person with the addiction or figuring out how to help the person with the addiction. This leads to other issues in the balance of the family and the equilibrium of the family system, such as there may be a role that develops of the caretaker. The caretaker is also known as the enabler, often covers the addict's problems and responsibilities to keep everyone happy. The caretaker is very enmeshed with keeping the status quo. Additionally, there may be the role of the hero, typically seen as overly responsible and self-sufficient. The hero attempts to restore the dysfunctional home life behind closed doors. Additional family roles are those such as the scapegoat, the problem child as it were known. Through acts of defiance or hostility, he or she diverts attention from the person with the addiction's behavior. The mascot is also known as the comedian of the family. This person uses humor and silliness to lessen the stress and anxiety caused by the person with addiction's behavior in the family. And then the lost child, the quiet one of the family, who flies under the radar while other family members play their roles dealing with the person who has addiction's behavior. We're going to discuss for a few minutes the parallels between the person with the addiction and the family. First thing we're going to discuss is preoccupation. Preoccupation from both the patient's perspective and also the family member's perspective so that we can see the apparent parallel. The person with addiction is preoccupied with the substance, getting it, maintaining a supply, and using it. The family is preoccupied with the person with addiction, the person with addiction's behavior, and their safety. Additionally, the person with addiction is maintaining an effort to control their addiction. People with addiction believe they can control their usage. I can control my usage is what the person with addiction is thinking, which then justifies continued use. Family believes they can also control the person with addiction. We can control the persons with addiction's behavior. We can make them stop. Additionally, somebody with addiction develops a tolerance. Tolerance increases. The person with addiction requires increasing amounts of the substance. Family's attitude towards the person with addiction also grows tolerance. Tolerance increases. Attitudes and behaviors that would have been unthinkable or intolerable become commonplace and generally accepted by the system at some level. Additionally, denial or minimization of feelings. The person with addiction deny their feelings. They are choosing or they are not feeling in their active addiction. The substances and the continued use of substances supports them not feeling. And additionally, the family feelings are denied as well. Additional parallel of the person with addiction and the family is the accommodation of lifestyle. The person with addiction, their friends change, where they spend time, what they do changes based on the need to support the addiction. As with the family also compensates for the person with addiction by changing what they do, person, places, or things to accommodate the addiction as well. Values are compromised for both the person with addiction and the family members as well. Those with addiction seek to protect the substance use, don't talk about it, don't name it, and families seek to protect the person with addiction as well, don't talk about it, don't name it. So just leave you with this slide of the mobile, that a family is such like a mobile in that anything that touches one aspect of the family affects the rest of the aspects of the family as well. So the whole system is affected, and additionally, the whole system strives to maintain balance. As we delve further into addiction and family dynamics, I want to introduce to you a term. The term is codependence. Codependence is the enmeshment of individuals. As a codependent family member, my feeling good about myself and my willingness to uphold my values depends upon the thoughts, actions, and feelings of the person with addiction. The behavior for this is called enabling. As we discuss 12-step groups such as AA and NA for the person with addiction, we also need to mention that there are groups for those with codependence issues or family systems that have enabled in the past and are also striving to get free of that addiction, and that group is called Al-Anon. And we will provide you a link and resources following this presentation. Enabling means taking away the consequences of using or rescuing the person with addiction from those consequences. Additionally, in an addicted family system, there are rules. These rules are largely unspoken, but everybody knows what they are. Some of these rules may be believe that the addicted person's substance use is the most important thing in the family's life. That might never be verbalized, but that is what behaviors would seem to indicate within that addicted system. There may be a rule that insists that the person with addiction substance use is not the cause of the family's problem. Additionally, there could be denial that there is a problem, and there could also be a tendency to blame others, not to discuss it, and to cover up what has occurred. Often there is a code of silence or unspoken rules about what is okay to talk about and what is not okay to discuss in the realm of the family system. Oftentimes there are losses, similar losses, parallel losses experienced by both the person with addiction and also the addicted family system. For example, folks with addiction lose money. Family systems also lose money attempting to mitigate consequences for the person with addiction oftentimes. Time with friends. The person with addiction loses their real friends. The addicted system also loses friends if they are constantly reactive to the behaviors of the person with addiction and attempting to salvage that person's life or ability to stay sober. Fun is another thing that typically could be a loss. Career opportunities, academic opportunities, good times with family, intimacy, trust of people that are cared about, hopes and dreams, sleep, rest, self-care, self-respect, and also interests are also things that can potentially be losses of the family system as they are for the person with addiction. As we discussed earlier, when a person suffers from addiction, their interests in life tend to decrease. So at one point, somebody had robust interests in all different areas of life, and we see those things decreasing one by one until all that is left is the compulsion to use and pursue the addiction. Additionally, those same consequences occur for the family. Family has interests, robust interests with each other in the family system and outside of the system, and as the person with addiction, their problems grow and the family's problems grow in terms of trying to compensate with that addiction, their interests also decrease gradually over time until nothing is left but trying to help the person with addiction with their disease. You may be a person that has a family member that suffers from addiction. Take a moment and reflect on whether you have suffered some of these losses in your relationship and trying to salvage your relationship or manage your relationship with the person with addiction. If this is the case, then these are oftentimes parallel losses to what the person with addiction may be experiencing as well.